when we sleep, part of why we sleep is because of the darkness, the onset of darkness, and the resultant production of melatonin, which helps our cells causes our cells actually to be repaired and rejuvenated so that they can then go and function properly the next day and allow us to be healthy. And if we don't sleep or we have chronically disrupted sleep, then over time this disruption basically accumulates and is aging and disease generation if it happens too quickly in a specific organ. So our glasses block these wavelengths of blue light. It's a very simple thing, actually. It sounds so simple when I think it sounds simple when I say it, but they block this blue light, which disrupts our body's rhythm, and so it allows our brain to say, hey, there's still lights around, like I can see, in other words, but the brain doesn't have the blue light, so in a way the brain says, not out loud of course, but like, hey, it's actually night, so like I'm going to start making melatonin because I don't see any blue light, which is the signal that the sun is rising. So now I'm going to make melatonin, and I'm going to obviously get tired, the body's going to get tired, and I'm going to go to sleep and repair as I was designed properly. But the brain doesn't do that if we're exposed to artificial light, especially from screens and TVs, which we look, and phones and computers, which we look right into, unlike most other light sources that are just around us. We're actually staring directly into the light source with screens, so it's even way worse. And so the glasses block this light, again, allowing the brain to produce melatonin naturally, and then people sleep better and have more energy and feel better. So that's the product.
So it sounds like with circadian rhythm, right? We're meant to know it's daytime, wake up, it's nighttime, go to sleep, rest. Like that keeps life on track.
Yes.
And so when we wake up, the sun has a lot of colors, including blue light, which we don't usually see. So our bodies are like, okay, that's the marker I'm going to go off of. It makes sense. It's sunlight, daytime, no melatonin, we're awake.
Yeah.
Nighttime, sun goes away, blue light goes away. So it's time to make melatonin.
Yep.
And you're saying that our phones and everything totally throw off that process.
Yeah, they definitely do. And for example, there's plenty of research on this, so it's not like something I just came up with. As I mentioned to you just before the podcast, like I'm not a scientist per se. I mean, you could say like a hobby scientist. Some people will reject that can even exist, you know, the very rigid ones. But
lifelong learners.
Yeah, like I just like to learn, and I learned a lot as a kid for my own interest, and I started a business, and I continued to learn then a lot about business. And but 5-6 years before starting the company, I was just reading all I could on the internet and basically skipped high school in a sense just by studying my own stuff. I still got straight A's, but I just didn't put a lot of energy into school. So somehow I was managed. I survived. But but anyhow, so yes, this is basically how it is. The circadian rhythm controls a lot about our system. It controls metabolism, it controls hormones, it controls neurotransmitters, it controls a lot of things. And then there are other rhythms, like for example, in women, rhythms that control like fertility, which is a rhythm, it's called, if I'm not mistaken, infradian rhythm, which is longer than the length of a day. So it's like a cycle that follows, well, it's the naming is a little bit odd, but anyway, because it could be ultradian, which usually means longer, but it's actually talking about the frequency, and the frequency is slower in an infradian rhythm. In other words, the frequency of a circadian rhythm is 24 hours approximately, which is why it's circadian. Circa in Latin means approximately. So like if you ever read history, it's like circa the year 500, right. C.500, so circa. So circadian rhythm means circa dies, approximately a day, because the first researchers who discovered circadian rhythms noticed in these animals, these organisms, like, oh, there's this rhythm that's following the length of around a day. And it's super intuitive, I would think, and I think it was clear for these scientists, like these rhythms in the organism are tracking and keeping the organism aligned with the external changes in the environment, specifically the change of day to night. But so an infradian rhythm is a rhythm, biological rhythm, which
a bug got me.
Oh, good. It's a rhythm it has a frequency which is slower than a day, meaning like a month. And so the female menstrual cycle is an infradian rhythm, which generally follows the cycle of the moon. And then even slower infradian rhythm would be like changes in the human throughout a year, like seasonal changes. So like thickening of the skin in the winter, thinning of the skin in the summer, these types of changes. So
Okay, I have
we
a
have
crazy
a lot of things.
question for you based off that. Do you think men versus women are affected more by blue light?
That's a really good question. There actually are there's probably studies on this, not that I'm familiar with though, to be honest, at this moment. But I couldn't say. I actually couldn't say. I mean, if I had to guess, I would. Nah, I couldn't say. I don't know.
You don't want to guess?
I'm glad you asked though. No, I wouldn't guess. I mean, like on one hand, yeah, maybe if I'm just completely guessing, I'd say like, well, women are very sensitive to the environment for like hormonal reasons and like taking care of children. So in this sense, yeah, maybe women would be more sensitive. But then on the other hand, men also, like as the ones traditionally and biologically who are responsible for survival, would often be up like really early for hunting and things like this. So I would think in that case, maybe men would need to be more sensitive to this kind of thing. But I think those are just, again, these are just totally theories, or hypotheses, not even theories. Maybe the best one would be that we're equally affected in this case, because we have, although our biology is very different, and I'm not the person who would try to deny the differences in male and female biology, I think in this respect it's quite uniform, I would think, in humans, and it's because it's also so common in all other organisms. They have circadian rhythms, so circadian rhythms are definitely consistent between men and women. Yeah, maybe there's some variations, and I would think that sensitivity to blue light is also pretty consistent. But so I'm going back, I was getting into something before, which was that there's tons of research on the subject of blue light and circadian rhythms. Like there's population data from Israel, studies that have been done showing that essentially increases in artificial light at night in general increase population-based diseases like across populations. So like obesity, diabetes, cancer, like just there's a general link and increase in population diseases at a population level, chronic illnesses.
Is there a correlation between mental health disorder and blue light exposure?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. That was the next point. So, and this is just like blue light in public in the Israeli case, like street lights and all this, like just artificial light at night in general in society that they are looking at. In this one study I'm referring to in my head, I'd have to pull up the name and get it to you. But then there was a massive study that came out recently, actually. There's like 85,000 participants from Australia, a study based out of Australia, that found significant impacts. Like the primary focus was on the effects of light on mental health, and it's considered the largest study ever done on the effects of light on mental health, and basically found that light has a massive impact on mental health, and that darkness at night is in many ways as important as having like bright light during the day, actually. I sent this study to Professor Huberman because we were messaging on Instagram, and I was like, have you seen this? And he said, for me this is really profound because it just emphasizes the fact that what I just said, darkness at night, is equally as important as light in the morning. So one of the things
Does he talk like that even across DM, that it's really profound?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's something like what he said, actually. Yeah, it was along those lines for sure. But basically, he's been speaking about this. Oh, nice, we got a blue bird. Oh my gosh. That's a blue jay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a blue jay. I hope that's in the camera right now. If I'm in the way, I'm going to move. All right, everybody, witness the miracles of nature. I'm just going to take a pause here and appreciate the bird. He's here to say hello and tell us we're doing a good job. Yeah, it's so cool. Blue light, blue jay. Blue is actually extremely rare in nature. That's another thing. Like, think about how often do you see that color of blue in nature? Like, look all around the yard. No way.